Welcome back to another Foxy Games UK video. It is Friday, and with this weekend, for many but not nearly enough, respite is in sight. Two hot news stories for you today, but first, GB News, a UK broadcast, national broadcast news network, asked me on as a guest, and I've put it up on Twitter if you're interested, on my Twitter account. That's at FoxyGames_UK. Rather bizarre because they took a bit of a risk with me. I'm sure the BBC wouldn't have me on. But anyway, two hot news stories for you today as reported via VGC. Naughty Dog says it's moved on from Uncharted and could do the same with The Last of Us. Studio co-president Neil Druckmann says Sony wouldn't pressure it into making The Last of Us Part 3. Interesting. So the Naughty Dog co-president Neil Druckmann has said the studio has moved on from Uncharted and could do the same for The Last of Us should it decide not to proceed with a third mainline series entry. That's a third mainline series entry. The Last of Us series has sold over 37 million copies since its debut way back in 2013 on the PlayStation 3 and is currently in the spotlight thanks to the very successful launch of a HBO TV adaptation. Naughty Dog is also developing a standalone Last of Us multiplayer game, which will include its own story and a new cast of characters. Despite the franchise's commercial and critical success, Druckmann has claimed that Naughty Dog's parent company Sony wouldn't pressure Naughty Dog into continuing the story of Ellie and Abby that was told in 2020's Last of Us Part 2. Druckmann told BuzzFeed that if the studio could come up with a compelling story for Part 3, The Last of Us Part 3, and is passionate enough about the project, it will make it. If not, it might decide to move on from the series, like it has chosen to do with its other blockbuster franchise, Uncharted. Here's a quote. I know there's a bunch of people wondering about The Last of Us Part 3 and whether that will be a thing or not. All I could say is, at Naughty Dog, we're very, very privileged that our publisher is Sony, which means Sony funds our games, supports us, and we're owned by Sony. And they have supported us every step of the way to follow our passions, meaning that just because something is successful, people think there's all this pressure and we have to make a sequel. That is not the case. For us, Uncharted was insanely successful. Uncharted 4 was one of our best-selling games, and we're able to put our final brushstroke on that story and say that we're done, we're moving on. Likewise, with The Last of Us, it's up to us whether we want to really continue it or not. Our process is the same thing we did with the Part 2, which is we can come up with a compelling story that this universal message statement about love, just like the first and second game did, then we'll tell that story. If we can't come up with something, we have a very strong ending with Part 2, and that will be the end. Now, Druckmann also said in April 2021 that a story outline had been written for the potential third game in the series, but that wasn't currently being developed. In a recent interview with The Hollywood Reporter, Druckmann, who also co-produced and co-wrote the HBO show, hinted that an potential second season of TV series could cover The Last of Us Part 2 and that Naughty Dog might have plans for a third entry in the series. I think there's more story to tell, said Druckmann. Now, Naughty Dog recently released the second piece of concept art for its standalone Last of Us multiplayer game and said it plans to reveal more about the project later this year. And Druckmann also told BuzzFeed that they've been pretty open about the Last of Us game, and it's going to be a multiplayer experience where you'll be able to enter the world of The Last of Us with your friends and get to experience the tension and brutality of that world, and a brand new story and cast of characters that live in another city that we haven't seen in the world of The Last of Us. This is going to be another chapter in the universe of The Last of Us. Interesting. It seems they could be done with the mainline story and they've got these other canon stories. Who knows? Now, Naughty Dog developed Uncharted Drake's Fortune way back in 2007, Among Thieves the sequel in 2009, Drake's Deception 2011, and of course A Thief's End in 2016. A standalone expansion, Uncharted The Lost Legacy, also released in 2017 but developed by a second team within Naughty Dog. It also handled the PS5 version of the Uncharted Legacy of Thieves collection, which was released in 2021 and includes remasters of the Uncharted 4 and Lost Legacy for PS5. Now, while Druckmann claims Naughty Dog has moved on from the series, last April, a recruiter at the studio seemingly hinted that Sony could be planning future Uncharted releases. I've also heard that too at Foxy Games UK. announcing that she joined Naughty Dog, Christina Marie Drake McBreety, to be building a future team for not only new titles but for the legacy of Uncharted. And that's very telling, isn't it? Now, a job listing late last year also said that a new internal development team at Sony was co-developing a game with Naughty Dog based on a beloved franchise. Other Sony-owned studios have previously developed Uncharted spin-offs or remasters, including Bend Studio Uncharted Golden Abyss and Bluepoint Games Uncharted The Nathan Drake Collection. It may not be Naughty Dog that's developing it, but I can tell you now, there's going to be another Uncharted game. Period. And in other news, this time reported by xfire.com, Sony is reportedly prioritizing PlayStation 6 over a potential PS5 Pro. In other words, PlayStation 5 Pro may have been cancelled. So new PS5 models are still coming, but don't expect to see a mid-cycle refresh like the PS4 Pro was for the PS4. Bad news for those waiting on a PlayStation 5 Pro before making the jump from an older console generation, as a trusted insider claims Sony is focusing its efforts on the next PlayStation as opposed to a mid-generation upgrade. Tom Henderson, who's as reliable as they come when it comes to leaks, says that the continuous demand for the PlayStation 5, a fact that may have something to do with the relative lack of competition from Xbox, these are the words of xfire.com, not Foxy Games UK by the way, is making Sony think twice about introducing a hardware refresh. Keep in mind that the PS5 is turning 3 later this year, which is roughly around the same time that the sales of the PS4 started to taper off. On the other hand, the PS5 is just about to experience a surge now that more stocks are available following nearly 3 years of stock drought. If it's any consideration, Henderson believes that Sony will release a new PS5 model or models. It just won't be an upgrade if you compare it to PS5. Now, all things considered, Sony is better off looking forward to the next console generation, unlike PS4, which was really already struggling to keep up with the ever-demanding engines, struggling to keep the advancements in technology like 4K TVs and a massive jump in graphics 3 years into its life cycle. It feels like today's games still haven't really pushed the PS5 past its limit. I mean, they haven't even used some of the custom tools that are available to both the Series X, S and the PlayStation 5. Now, unless we're talking about the unoptimized messes, the PS5 is plenty powerful enough for the most demanding games to run with ease, even on a 4K TV. Not to mention the shift to 8K hasn't happened yet and probably won't anytime soon. When you consider that the demand for the PS5 is still much higher than the available supply, there isn't a point to a PS5 Pro model at this point, or even this generation. Based on the gaming industry's continued support for the PS4 and Xbox One and the fact that incoming games haven't really tested the boundaries of the new gaming hardware, a Pro model is more of a wishful thought than a reality. Of course, this could all change, and Sony could push back the release of the PlayStation 6 to closer, really to the next decade, to give way for a PS5 Pro, a potential one at least, but this is highly unlikely. New consoles sell better than mid-cycle upgrades. So it looks like it has been cancelled, and for what it's worth, Sony is introducing plenty of new hardware in this console generation. I mean, the PlayStation VR 2 will launch in a few weeks, and the DualSense Edge already launched on January 26th, yesterday. And finally, there's Project Leonardo, an accessibility-focused controller for PS5. So there you have it. It looks like PS5 Pro was a thing at one stage, and they've decided perhaps, according to Tom Henderson, now this is still very much rumor, Sony hasn't even mentioned anything of a Pro model to begin with, let alone someone debunking whether they're going to have one or not. And Tom Henderson has a good track record according to Xfire, and a lot of people support and agree with that sentiment. However, that doesn't mean anyone's infallible, and this information could be incorrect. Doesn't mean it's a dishonest statement or it's a lie. It just means that things change, plans change. But at this point in time, according to Tom Henderson, they're more focused on PlayStation 6 due to the, I would say, stalled rollout of the PS5's generation. What say you? Let's continue the discussion cordially in the comments, as that brings us to the end of the video. But remember, there is a Foxy Games UK January 2023 giveaway, $100, £100 or your country's equivalent. The giveaway, totally random. 2 gift cards are up for grabs. Like, subscribe and hit the notification bell. It would be wise to comment regularly on videos, as that's where I'll be sourcing you randomly, and the draw will be announced by the end of the first week of February. Good luck out there. And you can help Foxy Games UK reach more gamers, so feel free to share the video. You may also wish to consider supporting Foxy Games via Patreon, because, well, yeah, we're like family now. Link in the description. But that concludes our time together on this Friday. Until next time, play games, not corporations.